Do any couples have anything planned today that you're going to go do? Anybody? There you go. Well, that'll be fun. Yeah. It's a good date. What's that? Yeah, there you go. Your grandson or your hubby? Oh, okay. Just confirming there. Yeah, we were going to go out tonight to go see Hail Caesar, that movie with George Clooney, but the kids were with a babysitter last night, and so as you saw our conversation, what Valentine's Day was on Facebook, and James says, Noodles and Company, that's what it's about, and so we felt a little convicted, we're going to cancel our plans and take the kids out tonight, so it'd be kind of fun, but Valentine's Day is something that, married couples, dating couples celebrate. I always get a card for Emma, and Tracy gets something for James, and that sort of thing. And but love is something that we experience, but it's also something that we experience. And so that's where I'm going to go this morning with the message. Is love is something that as Christians we're called to do. And Val and Nicole are on with us on Facebook. Hello. When you experience love, it's like, yeah, I experienced that. You go to Great America, yeah, I experienced vertical velocity. Have you been on that roller coaster before?
It's awesome.
Wow, it is awesome. Tracy walked through it 6 times before she actually rode it because you're standing here, you're at the gate. It's the only roller coaster that you're right next to when it takes off. And from here to this chair, this row of seats, is where vertical velocity is, and you sit under the track, okay? And when you're clipped in and it says go, I think you go 0 to 80 in seconds. You're gone, just boom, out of the gate. And then you go out and then you go straight up and down. And then you go this way and then you go straight up and down it.
There's a little corkscrew at the back.
Yeah, on the back side there's a little corkscrew, okay? Or the front side I think it is. But yeah, and then the keys sit in the back because on the second time you go back, you're 250 feet up looking straight down at the ground. And then you go up, they grab you, then they let you go and you go again. It's just, and it's like, yeah, I experienced that, but and that's what people can do. They go to Great America and say, yeah, I experienced it, I saw that and stuff. And it's like, no, but did you experience it? Okay, did you really experience it? Did you actually get on the ride like Superman? Okay, another one. You get on, you sit under the track, and you're on the roller coaster. You sit under the track, and then they put you in a Superman flying position. You feel very vulnerable at that point. Okay, and then you take off, and that's an inverted loop. So you go down around outside the track. You feel like your head's going to come out of your rear end, and then you go all the way down, and then you take off again. It's like, whoa, is that? And yeah, I've seen that before. No, but did you experience it? And so that's what we're going to talk about with church, with Christianity, with all this stuff. How many of you would go on those rides? Anybody? Okay, good. Ray even put up the rock horns on that one. There you go. Nice. Dave wouldn't?
No, absolutely not.
Come on. There's our next men's ministry trip. We're going to convince Dave. But let's talk about this, because when we experience something, we're like, yeah, we go to church. Yeah, it's cool to be a Christian. Yeah, I've done this. I've done that. But have you experienced it? Okay. Jimi Hendrix asked the question, are you experienced? Okay. There's an interesting discovery that I read about the other day. During experiments aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia, and it got me thinking a little bit because of the anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger and everything, you start looking up statistics. There was an actual discovery where the Columbia, scientists discovered that there are 26 lakes underneath the Sahara Desert. Does that make sense? It's the weirdest thing. There are 26 lakes under the Sahara Desert. And one person said it's heart-rending to think of the people who are starving and dying of thirst because these hidden resources have not yet been tapped into. And so in a similar way, there's a number of spiritual resources that lie untapped in any church, okay? I have no doubt there's spiritual resources that lie untapped in Radiant Fellowship. There's spiritual resources that lie untapped in First Assembly, in Faith Community, St. Mary Magdalene, Parkviewville, all of these churches. And, it's a shame because these are things that we can use. These are people that we can use, gifts that we can use to show love to our community. And my fear in not tapping into this is that we're missing out on what Christian life is all about. Now, as a pastor, I can say it's kind of easy for me to say it's my job to come up with new ministries, new ways of doing things, reaching people. And, you know, one way that Carrie and I have, you just look like you're not feeling good. You're just tired. In her very white voice, I'm just tired. Okay. Who is the man? No, that's Shaft. Okay, anyways. But, you know, Carrie and I, we've been racking our brains too because Tracy is running our kids ministry, and we're like, oh, we need someone to take over kids ministry, you know, and that's a hard one. I mean, let's just face it. When we go up to somebody and say, would you like to work nursery today? Not a lot of people are like, yes, that is my calling in life to change poopy diapers on another kid. Yes, that's what I want to do. It takes a special person. Kids ministry, would you be willing to do something in kids ministry? And, you know, we've actually asked the Assembly of God for help and different people. You know, we're looking at actually a very part-time salary for a kids worker, and it's hard to do. It's hard to find. But there are a lot of people that are like, I'm good with kids. But it's like there's a point where maybe somebody got hurt, or you just think you're done, and God's like, you're not done. And you're just like, it's untapped potential, much like those hidden lakes under the Sahara Desert. And some of us are settling for something far less than what God intended for you in your life. So let's talk about that a little bit. We have some more viewers online. It's good to see everybody. But Romans. And I realize that's really dark on a sunny day. I'll take the sun over being able to see the screen, though. Amen. Romans 12, 1 through 8. Therefore, and you know this verse. If you've been in church for a half hour, you've heard this verse. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. A great metal band, Christian metal band, by the way, Living Sacrifice. Jeremy would agree, and Rick. Anyways. Holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us is one body, with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, though many form one body. And each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it's teaching, then teach. If it's to encourage, then give encouragement. If it's giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. So Paul then gives us 3 ways to fully express our surrender to God and how to serve. As a former youth pastor, and a lot of you are former youth in youth groups, I cannot tell you how many times kids would come up and teens would come up and say, I'm looking for my calling in life. And meanwhile, as soon as you say, you know, we're looking for someone to help Sister Papoofnik in the nursery, okay, this kid's like, that's me. You know, you say, we're going to go to an inner city outreach. We're going to help with kids. Kids like, that's me. I want to help. I want to do that. You know, and meanwhile, then later on, they're like, man, I just want to do what God's will is for my life. And you're like, do you notice how your ears perk up every time we need somebody to help with kids? Probably there's something there saying you like kids and you like working with kids. Okay. Now I need to apologize really quick. The guys are doing a great job on working with the sound system, but there is a buzz yet. It's a grounding issue that we're working through. So that's why you hear a little brrr constantly. It's not your hearing aid. It's just, you know. So let's talk about this because a lot of us already know what our passion is. Okay, the worship singers, the team, they know that they like playing instruments and singing. So that's what they're doing. Okay, helping out in kids. You know, our Wednesday night program volunteers. They're great with kids. Sue, she could take a group of kids right now, and I guarantee you she could build a 747 out of what's in her purse. Okay? She has that knack. Like, hey, look, kids, I just happen to have this. Wow. Okay? She's just phenomenal with kids, and you know we have all of these giftings, and yet some of us, you know, we're like, I don't know where to fit in yet. So Paul points out 3 things. Number 1, offer your body. To offer means to present once and for all. God, I want to do this. I want to do this in life. For me as a youth pastor, did I have a defining moment where God called me into ministry, and I had this Shekinah moment, and well, I don't even know what that means, but, all of this stuff, and I'm like, no, not really. There are people that have that definitive call in their life, but that wasn't me. For me, it was, I was horrible in high school. I didn't get good grades, and I ended up helping my youth pastor a lot growing up, and I just actually ended up liking ministry. Okay, this was what I did. I helped out at church, and at 18 years old, I was handed the kids ministry, and I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And then I started working with the youth group and helping my youth pastor. I'm like, this is really cool, and God just developed a passion in my life for it. And you have a same story, where once and for all, you offer your life to God and say, God, what can I do for you? Okay, family first, that's a gimme. Okay, you got to start ministering your family first. But beyond that, beyond your job and everything, what can you do for God? In the Old Testament, worship included sacrifice. The idea of a living sacrifice must have been a novel idea to the Jews of that day. God isn't interested in beasts today. He's looking for bodies of believers who will be sold out to him, saying, I'm going to do this. This is my church. This is the ministry I'm going to help out with. Let's do it. Let's make a difference in people's lives. Number 2, Paul points out, you know what? Offer your mind. Verse 1 calls for a decisive commitment to fully surrender. I'm going to do this when. I'm going to do this when. I'm going to get involved when. When is constant. One of the things I discover in premarital counseling, marital counseling, and just talking with guys in general is we're going to start a savings account when I can put $500 into it. Okay? When is that day going to come? Never. So basically, why not start with $1 today? Okay? Dave Ramsey theory, 10% to the church, 10% to savings, 80% for life. That sort of thing. Instead of starting big. Another thing I hear is we're going to go on vacation when we can make Disney World happen. Okay? So when is that going to be? Never. It's expensive. I love the Morgans. They went to Disney World recently, and Keith and Marnie and Callie, and they spent, I think, a week and a half down there. And then they get back to the state. They get back to home here, and Keith puts on a Facebook, I'd rather go camping. It's just amazing. And that's the case, we sometimes think, I will do this when you can do a big investment. When in fact God's saying, I gave you something, a talent you have, what are you doing with it? Start now. Start doing something now. Verse 2 tells us how we can maintain that commitment by renewing our mind and not allowing the fashion and pattern of the world to influence us. And as we discovered in the past, the world's ways of doing things is built on selfishness. The Christian's ways of doing things is built on selflessness. I'm going to do this to help people. I'm going to do this to help with the church. I'm going to do this to help grow a minister, and do this to help the church reach people. I'll tell you where my mind went this week. One of my hobbies that I love doing is RC cars. Not the little Toys R Us RC cars, but the high-end. I have one, a monster truck. It's called a Rock Climber. It's called the Wheelie King, but it does 60 miles per hour. It's a brushless motor, and thing just poof, it's gone down the road. And I started looking online this week, and there's some indoor tracks in Appleton that people pay money to go use, for these things. I'm like, man, we got a bunch of land in the back of our church. What would it be like if start putting it out on Facebook on these different buy-sell trade sites saying, are there any RC hobbyists out there that would be interested in the, this is where my mind goes. It sounds crazy maybe for a church to offer that, but hey, if we could get people to come and, we could do something like that, maybe that's something we could do. Not saying it's going to happen, but you got to brainstorm. You got to think about your life and say, what could I be doing? Got a lot of downtime. That's not a bad thing. Okay, downtime is not a bad thing. We need it. But too much, and it's like, maybe we could get involved in helping out with something. Maybe we can make a difference somewhere. I know if even Radiant Fellowship as a church, but, Spencer Lake. That place rises and falls on volunteers, retired people. At any given summer, there's a project going on. It's retired people out there saying, I'm bored. I need to go do something. and they get involved out there. And number 3, Apostle Paul says, offer your will. Notice the last part of verse 2. It says, then we will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. In other words, you're not going to volunteer and be like, I don't like kids, but I had to fill a void. No, then don't do it. If you don't like the kids, guess what? The kids aren't going to like you either. Kids can be brutally transparent, read right through you, especially teenagers. Okay? You just, if you like kids though, man, I've always said the perfect kids ministry comes by the way of doing this, watching 2 movies. Okay? Pee-wee's Playhouse and UHF. Have you seen Weird Al Yankovic's UHF? Come on. You haven't seen, there you go, another rock horns from Ray. All right. UHF is a Weird Al Yankovic's movie from the 80s, and it's Michael Richards is in it and everything. And Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld, he plays a janitor, and they take over a TV station, and Stanley Spadolsky is Michael Kramer's character, and he has to run a kids program. And when he runs his kids program, it's like, yes, that's what a kids program should look like. That's exactly, look up, look down, and you found the penny of the oatmeal. You get to drink from Mr. Firehose, all these things. It's like, it's just perfect. Go home and rent UHF today. Pastor said so. And you will absolutely love it. You'll be introduced to Twinkie Wiener sandwiches. It's amazing. But you use a Twinkie as the bun and put a hot dog in. I did that in youth group. The kids loved it. So, but offer your will. Get involved and say, this is what I love to do. This is what I'm passionate about. Offer it to God. God will not force us into anything. He won't. If you don't want to do something, he's not going to force you into doing it, because God doesn't do things half-heartedly. He does not dominate our wills, but allows us to choose his will. But it's no use sitting around and waiting to have the will of God revealed to us. This is an action verb. We learn his will by doing. So Tracy, my wife, she's got a couple things on her plate right now. Okay? You see our conversation the other day talking about who has it worse, a guy with a cold or a pregnant lady? No. You didn't like that one, Regina? No?
I just slapped you.
She is, working in the Network Health Affinity Ascension, Carrie works for them too. You have to volunteer, okay? Beyond and above being a supervisor at a hospital and working in a NICU, you must volunteer your time at a non-for-profit as well. So she's gotten involved over this last few months at the Pregnancy Information Center here in town. I used to be on the board with this and with this place, and what she does is she goes in once every other week and meets with this young lady for an hour of counseling. And she started talking with Dana Fleece, the director over there, and there's a great need that they have. And this is where moms come in and they instantly, oh my goodness, baby came early, or, when baby comes, the moms that go to the Pregnancy Information Center don't necessarily have everything that other couples would have. They're in need. They're in desperate need of counseling, material things. And Dana said their biggest thing right now that they need is a church, and there's no church that's stepped up to do this, to have meals ready to go when mom delivers. They don't have anyone to go to. They're pretty much on survival mode. I had my baby. I don't know what I'm going to eat when I get home, sort of thing. And I'm like, there's no church that stepped up to do this. I just found out about this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, we need to own this. We need to do this, because we have a lot of people in here that can cook. And so I thought, here's one ministry that we're going to start. It is called the Mark 12:31 ministry. Love your neighbor as yourself. And basically what we're going to do is just say, we'll take over this ministry. We'll head this up. And it's not a demanding ministry. But for the moms that go through and say, I don't have anything to eat when we get home, it's huge to them. But for us, when we make a meal, make a double batch, throw it in the freezer and have it on standby, we'll start stockpiling our freezer in the back. And when these moms go home, hey, you know what? Stop by Radiant. We'll give you your meals, and onward you go. What a simple way to do this. But how is this just like a no-brainer for the pastor of this church should discover this, or for us as a church, we like eating. 18 of us discovered that last night if we didn't already know that. And there are a lot of good cooks in this church as well. Some really take to a guy named Luigi, okay? At Woodman's. But there is, we have this desire, we have this gift, and this church knocks it out of the park with hospitality. And so, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a sign-up, ongoing sign-up saying, hey, if you would be on the call list to make meals, it would be huge for us to have you on this list. And then when a mom comes out and says, I don't have a meal, Dana calls us, we get in touch with the mom and say, here you go. Be blessed by this. Work, focus on your baby. Don't worry about your meals. Isn't that a cool thing? It's just simple. And then a lot of us, we have things throughout the weeks like, there's Wednesday nights. It seems to be a little more geared towards kids, but we have the adult study as well. And so I'm thinking, you know what? Let's do a Thursday morning breakfast club. Every Thursday morning, 8:30, Rose Garden. I'm going to be there. If you're off or you're not in at work, or you're retired and you're just looking for some conversation, I'm going to be there starting Thursday. Every Thursday, 8:30, Rose Garden breakfast. We'll go shoot the breeze, a little reprieve in the middle of the week, and onward we go. But, these things, it's like this came from my mind. I can't imagine what a lot of us are thinking ministry-wise that we could do if we put our mind to it and said, it's going to take some of my time, but I'm willing to do this thing. Because Paul said, offer yourself as a living sacrifice. In other words, go serve. Go do this thing. The way to knowing God's will also involve having a proper estimate of ourselves. And again, verses 3 through 5, we read, for by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought. It's a huge reminder for the moms of this ministry, of the Pregnancy Information Center. I don't think any more highly of myself than over them, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not have all the same functions, so in Christ, we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all of the others. So number one, discern who you are. Thinking more highly of ourselves than we should is one of the greatest problems in serving God. To look at somebody's situation and say, well, if you weren't so dumb, you wouldn't be in this situation. What are you doing? Because you know what? We've all been in those situations before. I look at a kid, when the old youth pastor side comes out at me, when I see a kid struggling in high school with grades, it's like, man, I have been there. I love school so much I stuck around for an extra semester. I was what they call a super senior. Missed graduation by 1 credit. Had to go to school for for one semester for a half a day. It was like, class of 92, 93. Okay. Which makes it very difficult to be invited to class reunions. I don't get invited. That's what it is. And so I look at kids that have poor GPAs and I like to sell them saying, don't you dare think about dropping out. And I love those heart-to-heart talks with them. The Roman church may have struggled with the problem of self-importance because they were located at the heart of the Roman Empire. And one person said, have you ever been around an individual who always thinks they're right? Don't nudge your spouse. But seriously, have you ever been around an individual who always thought they were right? How does it feel to be around someone who boasts and brags about his or her abilities? It's not a good feeling. And so Paul's saying, if you're going to serve, don't think too highly of yourself. Number 2, and I use this term cautiously, celebrate diversity. In this way, we must remember that just as there are different parts of the body have different functions, so too in the body of Christ. Each of us have been given the different gifts and roles. This person over here is the mouth. They just love to talk. That's their gift. Man, if I can't do a hospital visit, I'm going to send that person because they could talk for an hour on Dixie cups. Okay, whatever. I celebrate that diversity. Okay, this person over here, if it ever comes to light that they're the ones that prepare communion, they will be embarrassed to the core. I get that. That's them behind the scenes. That's just where they want to stay. Celebrate the diversity in the body of Christ, okay? That everybody has a role, a task to do. And then number 3, recognize our dependency. While we're uniquely designed, we've been made to function in the community with one another. Each of us belongs to another. How many times have you called on Dave over here for a woodworking project? A lot of us have. Tracy did downstairs with a kids project. You know, we're dependent on Dave. But you know what? At the same time, we're dependent on Tamara because she leads up the worship team. We're dependent on Regina because she's our hospitality. Someone walks in the door, first thing they see, the cafe, coffee, smells awesome. She makes sure that's stocked up. We all have things. The nice clean floor, you know what? The vacuuming, the sweeping, the cleaning, this just doesn't happen. I don't do it. It wouldn't look this good. Marnie Morgan, this is what she does. Every week she comes in and cleans the church top to bottom. We're dependent on each other. When we go through hurts, when we go through trials, when we go through pains, we have each other. May we never have a church where we'd be afraid to approach the pastor or another person and say, help me, because we might be embarrassed. But rather, man, we've all been there before. We've all been in an area of hurt. We've all been in an area of need. If we don't have the church to go to, where else can we go? We have family, but sometimes it's easier to go to the church than it is the family. But this is what a church does. Experts tell us that 85% of the success of people in the workplace is directly related to their interpersonal relationships. And so, Parenting 101, bad attitudes hinder good relationships. We're a family. When new people come in, we accept them into the family. And we're there for each other. And so I conclude with one person saying, many of us would rather experience something than do something. We always learn more by doing because our gifts are given to be given. And Zig Ziglar put it this way: commit to personal growth through fully expressing your surrender to God. Commit to his local body through a proper estimate of yourself. And commit to ministry by completely engaging in service. When we do, we'll tap into the rich reserve of God's blessings. We're a church. We're there for each other. This is what we do. Let's have the worship team.